Welcome to Part 3 of Full Circle Ancestry's German Ancestral Heritage Series, where we visit Freiburg im Breisgau, Germany, and its surroundings. This is the story of Friedrich Zimbar, born 1841. Today we're going to zero in on another of my great-great-grandfathers. He was born Friedrich Zimbar, and shortly we'll get into some of the historical records that led me to today's destination. Before that, let's look at where we'll be spending time in this episode. We'll be moving to the very southwest corner of Germany, out of Bavaria and into the German federal state of Baden-Württemberg. When Friedrich Zimbar lived here, again, we're in the time before the existence of a unified Germany. It was the Grand Duchy of Baden. The Zimbar family lived in the area in and around Freiburg im Breisgau. If you guessed that there might be more than one Freiburg in Germany, you'd be right. Breisgau is an area east of the Rhine River, and that moniker is used to specify this Freiburg. It is on the edge of the famed Black Forest, into which we'll dip our toes today. Freiburg was founded in 1120 as a free market town, from which it gets its name. Frei means free in the sense of being independent. Burg describes a castle or a fortress or a fortified town, and as we'll see, the city built some impressive defensive structures back in the day. Notice I'm trying to enunciate Burg in the German pronunciation. This is different than the word Berg, which indicates a mountain or at least a significant hill. In the last Perspectives episode, we strolled around the village of Falkenberg, which translates to Falcon Mountain. In English, these generally converge into Berg, but Burg and Berg have distinctly different meanings. I found Fred Zimbar, as he was commonly denoted in U.S. records, in the same 1910 and 1900 census records as his wife Anna Bauer Zimbar, who we covered in Part 2. In both, Fred's occupation was working in a brewery. In 1900, the table has him born in November of 1841. He outlived his wife and was listed in 1920, living with his widowed daughter and 3 grandchildren, now at age 78, as a watchman. Additionally, I found him in the 1870 U.S. Census as a farmhand from Baden in Stowe Township, Pennsylvania, northwest of Pittsburgh along the Ohio River. At some point, he made his way to Pittsburgh. By 1881, a city directory, the precursor to phone books, already had him working as a brewer, which seems to have been his ultimate main profession. Note that Ohio in this listing is the name of the street he lived on. His death certificate in 1923 was attested by his daughter, the same one he was living with in the 1920 census. It gives us a more specific birth date of 26 November 1841. He was buried alongside his wife at St. Augustine Cemetery near Pittsburgh. In this case, trying to find out where he came from originally was aided greatly by research and documentation that was already available on some of the well-known genealogy and ancestry-related websites. He arrived in New York Harbor in 1866 on the German-flagged steam and sailing ship Hansa from Bremen by way of Southampton. By 1876, he had renounced his allegiance to the Grand Duke of Baden and become a U.S. citizen. Someone provided this amazing picture of the Zimbar family, that is, Friedrich and his siblings and parents, taken sometime in the 1860s before Friedrich left Baden. This resource showed Friedrich born on 26 November 1841 and coming from Freiburg im Breisgau. My goal is always to find original records if possible, and this index is not that. This entry is written in what for me is an unfathomable script called Kurrent, a kind of German cursive used at the time, and in the form of a paragraph versus a tabular entry system. Someone who can decipher this gobbledygook has told me that it says Friedrich Zimber was born at 1 o'clock in the morning on 26 November 1841 and baptized at 1 o'clock in the afternoon the same day. His father was Georg, a master miller, and his mother's name was Maria with the maiden surname of Kunz. The baptism took place in Herdern, a village incorporated into Freiburg as early as 1457. Let me take a moment for a tangential observation. Today's subject, Friedrich Zimber, is the peer of Georg Janka from part 1 of the series. That is, Fred's daughter married George's son, and they became my great-grandparents. Fred was born in late 1841. George was born in early 1869, making him more than 27 years Zimber's senior. But Janka married his wife only 13 years earlier than Zimber, and his son Joseph was born barely 1 year earlier than Fred's daughter Dorothy. Finally, both George and Fred died in 1923, within 1 month of each other. There is a perception that in these older times everyone married younger and had kids younger. Perhaps this was more common, but with Fred Zimber, we have someone who married at age 38 and had his last child, my great-grandmother, at almost 54, when his wife was nearly 43. Bucking the trend they were. Well, Friedrich was born in Herdern, so we should go there next, right? Hold on a minute, because there have been even deeper dives into the Zimber lineage, and again I'm grateful to others that have made the plunge and shared the data. This table shows Friedrich Zimber's paternal line as far back as has been documented. We can see Friedrich at the bottom, with his father Georg Zimber above, who was born and died in Herdern. Georg's father Jakob, however, was born in Ziegelau, on which we'll elaborate shortly, as were all 8 of his siblings. Jakob's first 3 children were also born in Ziegelau, but the remainder were born in Herdern. Thus, Jakob is the Zimber who flew the coop. His occupation of Ackermann, essentially meaning a field hand, seems to be a rung down from his forefathers, who were listed as Bauer, generally meaning farmer, but used in this context as a term having more class, often indicating some level of land ownership. For reasons almost surely lost to time, Jakob Zimber broke the mold and moved to Herdern, which eventually precipitated Friedrich's move to America. The earlier generations were specifically listed as Bauer auf dem Eckleberg. A close study of the old map from the Ziegelau area shows Eckleberg here, but a map cannot convey the magnificence of this hillside. The Eckleberg is a small corner of Ziegelau, so to speak, which around its central cluster of buildings is a maze of small paths dotted with houses along the stream beds and valleys winding their way up from the valley floor. It astounds me that this hillside would support such a long agricultural heritage. Still today there is some grazing and some growing. It had to have been difficult for Jakob Zimber, Friedrich's grandfather, to walk away from these surroundings. The small and secluded Eckleberg enclave is gorgeous. As far as the eye can see, it is minimally impacted forest clinging to the rolling hills. Ziegelau is a dispersed community with only a small main village area down the hill and around the bend from Eckleberg. It is cozy and attractive, with several houses and inns featuring rustic and nostalgic artwork. The Roman Catholic Church of St. Vitus is certainly where Friedrich Zimber's ancestors worshipped. Unfortunately not open during my brief visit, it stands in picturesque surroundings. Nearby Ziegelau is the village of Bleibach, which like Ziegelau has been integrated into the larger municipality of Gutach since 1939. I came to Bleibach with one specific purpose, and I found that purpose in the Roman Catholic Church of St. Georg. Aside from the magnificent statue of St. George from 1697 and the sacristy preserved from 1878, the church was rebuilt in 1975 in a modern style. But the real treasure is hidden in a side chapel. It is called the Beinhauskapelle, the Bone House Chapel, a former ossuary built in 1720. This accompanying Dance of Death was painted around 1723. In this example of the inevitable interaction with death, the Bauer, the farmer or peasant, is compelled by the following verse. O Bauer, ich hilf dir aus deiner Not, hast vielen Schulden und raues Brot. Man tut dich täglich exequieren, komm, deine Schulden will quittieren. O peasant, I will help you out of your distress. You have many debts and coarse bread. People foreclose on you daily. Come, I want to settle your debts. How nice of Death to make this offer. He has a similar one for 32 other socio-economic states as well. These vignettes are capped by a band of skeletons playing with the vigor of a jazz band, the caption reading, "My trumpet sound brings joy or gloom for eternity." This is an exquisitely preserved work of art and worth a visit. Perhaps a more detailed look at the Beinhauskapelle will be the subject of a future Ancestry sidebar episode. Now that we've had our fun dancing with the skeletons, let's descend into Herdern, the birthplace of Friedrich Zimber. As said, once a distinct village, Herdern today has melded into Freiburg proper, but it stands on the edge, just on the line between suburbia and the openness of the Black Forest. Herdern is a little claustrophobic, feeling much more like a busy suburb than a cozy village these days. But that lets up just enough in the small open square in front of the Roman Catholic Church of St. Urban. This latest church building was consecrated in 1936, taking some of its bones, so to speak, from the previous building on the same site, which was completed in 1841, the year in which Friedrich Zimber was born. That church was consecrated barely a month before Friedrich came into this world, so he might have been one of the first children to be baptized there. The interior of the church is clean and bright, with a callback to its ancient past in the wooden ceiling beams that run across the center aisle, each carved with a biblical reference. The organ is from 1924 and improved in 1936, when it was placed in the new church building, which was needed to accommodate the growing population of Herdern at the time. While trying to avoid a salad of different names and places, I will once again mention Jakob Zimber, Friedrich's grandfather, the one who moved from Ziegelau to Herdern in the first decade of the 1800s. Jakob eventually had 7 children, Friedrich's father Georg, 3 daughters, and 3 sons, all of whom were listed in their respective records with the occupation Rebmann, that is, a viticulturalist or wine grower. It turns out that wine growing in Herdern goes back to the medieval days, and it's no coincidence that the namesake of the local church is Pope Urban I, Bishop of Rome from the year 222 to 230, and canonized to become Saint Urban. He is the patron saint of vineyards, wine growers, and coopers. But in a way, the joke is on the people of Herdern. Saint Urban of Lens, who was born more than 100 years after Pope Urban I died, is said to have nestled among grapevines to hide from would-be persecutors. Perhaps Saint Urban of Lens should have been the patron of Herdern's church, in place of Saint Urban I, who seems to have had no notable relation to wine or vines or barrels or anything similar. Be that as it may, the St. Urban fountain in the square in front of the church continues to flow in commemoration of the village's wine-growing past. From Herdern, it is also possible to get this view, with St. Urban in the foreground and the magnificent Freiburg Cathedral in the distance. I guess we must go there to check things out. Freiburger Münster, as it is known in German, officially the Cathedral of Our Lady in English, was built between about 1200 and 1513. The Gothic masterpiece has all the elements you'd expect. Its spire is 116 meters, or 380 feet, tall, a wispy, delicate structure. It is big enough to hold 16 bells, the oldest from 1258. The cathedral's flying buttresses allow for a vast, open interior space. The cathedral ended up not being heavily damaged during World War II, despite extreme bombing damage around it. The city center was rebuilt on the medieval plan, so it maintains that feeling. Water channels called Bächle, literally small streams, run here and there throughout Freiburg. They are diversions from the Dreisam River, originally dug to support firefighting and livestock feeding, not for sewage. In the old days, they ran down the middle of the road, and for a time they were covered to keep vehicular traffic, whether horse-drawn or motorized, from running into them. For the most part, they have been reconstructed along the side of the roadways, and mainly now serve to make the city visually distinctive, with a tie to its ancient past. Martinsgate, or Martinstor, still contains beams that have been dated back to the year 1202. An additional larger gate was added in 1901, along with this nifty clock face, and its height was increased from 22 to 60 meters, or from 72 to nearly 200 feet. The roof was also fancied up, as evident from this undated picture. The Swabian Gate, or Schwabentor, was first built around 1250. In the same burst of modifications that affected Martinstor, it was doubled in height and the roof reconfigured in 1900. The painting of St. George was added in 1903. The roof was significantly simplified in 1954 to its current look. Freiburg has the distinction of being truly on the edge of the forest, with its eastern flank dominated by the 456-meter or 1,496-foot-high hill known as the Schlossberg, the approaches to which begin just across the street from Schwabentor. The hillside is crisscrossed with a trail network that can lead one just about as far into the Black Forest as desired. But just an hour or two of walking the slopes gives the feel of removal from the city, although many views of the cathedral and the old gates are offered as well. Partway up the hill is Ludwigshöhe. This is the site of the earliest castle in Freiburg, dating to 1091. It went through a seemingly endless series of being destroyed and rebuilt, bringing into question the veracity of a fortress on this site. Perhaps with that in mind, it was transformed into an observation area in the early 1800s and named Ludwigshöhe in honor of Grand Duke Ludwig I of Baden in 1820. The name simply meaning Ludwig's Heights. Deeper into the woods, and in fact these days mostly overtaken by the forest growth, is a Bismarckturm, a tower dedicated to Otto von Bismarck, who was the first German chancellor and a driving force in the country's unification in 1871. After his death in 1898, a series of such towers were erected all around Germany. This one was finished in 1900 on a formation called the Sankt Peter-Felsen, or the Rock of St. Peter. Over its celebration of Bismarck having long become a questionable practice, this one has fallen into disuse and seems to have become a hangout spot and a target for other kinds of questionable practice. I personally wouldn't venture too close alone at night. At the summit of the Schlossberg currently stands the Schlossbergturm, a tower listed at a very specific 33.27 meters in height. Let's call it 109.15 feet. A narrow spiral staircase makes for interesting maneuvering in the event of two-way traffic, but it does offer the finest panoramic view of all the stops on this hillside. Descending from the tower and wandering back toward the city, One can make quick stops at the so-called Innsbrucker Kreuz, as well as this Kriegerdenkmal, or War Memorial. There are also endless, wonderful flowers all along the winding trails of the Schlossberg. It made sense to me to finish at the Kastaniengarten Biergarten, itself with elevated but not too distant views of Freiburg. The chestnut trees of the Biergarten also snuggle right up against the hillside vineyard, a final reminder of the wine culture of this region. To wrap up this episode, we have now covered the origins of both Fred Zimber and Anna Bauer and tied the proverbial knot on the first couple in this series. The birth of Fred and Anna's daughter Dorothy, my great-grandmother, was a critical result of this union. In part because of it, I can bring you this story today. Moving farther along that front is a story for another day, but in the meantime, I thank you for watching this episode of the German Ancestral Heritage series. Please like, subscribe, and consider supporting the channel. The third Perspectives episode is coming soon, and will cover a lot of ground. Take care, and I'll talk to you then.